a great leader is someone who, through their actions, through their words, through the way they conduct themselves, encourages you to follow them.
Welcome to Know Your Toastmasters Leader. I am Suraj Gavane, and every week I have conversations with the best leaders to help you become the very best leader that you can be. This week, we are excited to welcome Tom Hislop. He's a chartered financial planner and runs his own company, TDH Financial Planning. Tom worked in banking for over 25 years before deciding to start his own business. It was a big step and not without risk. But thanks to smart planning and strong commitment, he made it work. Come along to hear Tom's story, learn how he made the change, and what we can take from his experience to help in our own lives. Stay tuned. Tom, you started your career at Barclays and you worked for the last 25 years at different companies. Tell us a bit about yourself or a childhood story that shaped a kind of leader you are now.
Okay, yeah, I did start with Barclays a long time ago, really because I worked for Woolwich Building Society and Barclays bought over Woolwich Building Society. That would have been in my early 20s. And I guess at that point, like lots of young people, I was super motivated, wanted to climb the company ladder. But there was something about coming out of school and college, I just didn't have what I considered to be the sort of educational level that I wanted to aspire to. So by about my early 30s, I got really motivated to improve my education and eventually did an MBA with the Open University. And you were asking about something that inspired my leadership journey. Well, I had an experience in the final year of my MBA where I submitted my dissertation probably 2 months early. And my professor at the time said, Tom, I've had a look at this dissertation and it's up to you. You've submitted it very early. I could mark it just now, or maybe you could take a little bit more time over it. And I'm sure if you did that, you'd be much happier with your end result. I was so impressed with that professor, and I thought that was a perfect example of excellent leadership. Because I think he was really saying to me, Tom, you might fail this dissertation if I mark it just now. But because I was so early, he gave me an opportunity to revisit it. And I did revisit it and eventually passed my MBA. And although the MBA itself was an excellent qualification to have, it was more my interaction with that professor that gave me my first sense of what true exceptional leadership could be.
And how has these Toastmasters helped you to grow as a leader?
Well, Toastmasters really came about a few years after that, where I was with Barclays and my career was going well. I was just about through the MBA and I had a couple of things happen in work, which really are best described as panic attacks, always circling around public speaking. So much so that work became just horrible. I really just despised going to work. I wasn't motivated, although I was earning a lot of money and I looked as if I was successful from the outside. I wasn't happy. And eventually, I found Toastmasters. And Toastmasters really allowed me to reassess what I was doing with my career and with my life. And actually, through finding Toastmasters, I eventually left Barclays, took a step back, a significant reduction in salary, and I joined the Bank of Scotland, later part of the Lloyds Banking Group. And that allowed me really to start building again. And that's when I consider my career really started. So although I was probably late 30s at this point, it was a rebirth, a restart with Toastmasters at my side, an opportunity to really consider what is it that I want to get better at here. And I can't say I've 100% got over my fear of public speaking, but Toastmasters has been there with me every step of the way since then and made this whole difficult side of my working life much easier. So I have Toastmasters to thank a lot for what happened over that period.
Now you have your own firm. What inspired you to start your own company?
Yeah, so I always thought it might be nice to run my own firm, but I was never super motivated to do it. And although I worked for two big banks for 25 years, for 5 years after that, I worked for a really good financial planning firm, head office in Aberdeen. I worked in the Glasgow office. And I thought that was it. I thought my career would come to an end and I would stay there until I retired. But what they tried to achieve with the firm started to move slightly away from what I wanted to achieve with my career. And fortunately, I had an agreement with them that if I ever wanted to leave them, I would be allowed to approach the clients that I had taken to them with a view to them coming with me into my new venture. And that was sufficient for me to kickstart the career. So it wasn't really a case of I really wanted to do it, but I felt that that was the only logical place to go when their ambition and my ambition were slightly different.
Have you faced any challenges so far?
In setting up the business, do you know that the issue with setting up the business is I waited to a time in my life where I didn't really have any risks. I probably took the coward's way out there because both my daughters were adults and had moved out. I didn't have a mortgage. I had plenty of savings. I was nearly 55, so I had access to my pension if things hadn't gone well. So I wasn't really worried about it because I knew that the safety net was all in place. Way, way different had somebody suggested I do that 10 years or 15 years earlier. But the biggest risk was to my ego that it didn't work out because I could have done this and maybe none of the clients would have come with me and I would have been left with egg in my face. That didn't happen. It all went reasonably straightforwardly after I decided to do it. So no, it's been super successful.
Tom, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own business?
That is a really good question, Suraj. And I can tell someone how to set up a financial planning business, which is the type of business that I run. But obviously, there are so many different businesses that people could embark upon. A long time ago, I heard someone say that if you want to open a shoe shop, open it next door to a shoe shop.
Right.
And I guess what they were saying there was you really need to copy someone else who's done this successfully. And if you think about it, there are not many businesses that are all that different to every other business. Most new businesses are a version of something similar. So I guess the advice that I would give someone that really was passionate about setting up their own business, number one, you should work in that environment already. And if you're not in that environment, go work for someone else that is in that environment so that you can learn that industry. You don't want to be setting up a business where you're just starting out your career in that industry. You should be something of an expert. Really immerse yourself in that industry, listening to all the podcasts and reading everything you can about that particular environment. Make sure it is something that you're really passionate about. And then copy the good firms out there that you look at and say, I believe they're doing a really good job. I need to find out how they're going about that. And I guess the rest is just suck it and see. You just need to be prepared to make some mistakes and learn from them. And over the course of time, if you're passionate, you will make it. But it can be a long road for many people. My journey was a little bit easier because I was 30 years plus in this industry before I set up my own business. And I guess had I been 30 years working in someone else's shoe shop, I might have been able to set up a successful shoe shop.
And what's the biggest challenge, do you think?
I think the biggest challenge is probably giving up your guaranteed income to then become sort of self-employed and be reliant upon fees or sales in your kind of new business. As I said earlier, I didn't really take that risk because I waited until a time in life when I could afford to do it. If I was to do it earlier, and I'm aware of many people that are doing this sort of work and are being very successful, but they're doing it in their 30s and their 40s, and they don't have the financial resources behind them. So I really admire them for doing that. That's the big risk. Have you got enough capital to see yourself through the inevitable bad times as well as the good?
We're going to play the rapid fire round now. Tom,
Okay.
are you ready?
I'm ready.
3 words that describes you.
Motivated, hardworking, lucky.
1 habit that drives you success.
Daily exercise.
How you handle failure.
like most people, I don't really like failure, but the great Hamid Versace from this club is encouraging me to reframe any failure, and I think that is really helpful. Is being able to learn from your failure so that it can give you the springboard to move on to your next success. No one enjoys it though.
Best concert you have ever been to?
I've been to many concerts, Suraj. My favourite band is a Canadian rock band called Rush, and I saw them in their hometown in Toronto 2002, so that would be the best.
What's your secret to your successful marriage?
Well, as you know, Suraj, I've been married for 32 years, and I think that really comes down to marrying my best friend, someone that I truly love for the way that she is and not for the way that I wanted her to be. And I think if that's the approach anyone takes, they're going to have a good marriage.
Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you, Suraj. Yeah, favourite quote. I read a book a number of years ago when I was suffering from anxiety called Dare by Barry McDonough. And there's an amazing quote in there. It says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." And I thought that was an amazing piece of advice. So the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek.